I became disgusted with my own lack of understanding about marketing. And so I went ahead and put the brushes down for, I think, like 6 weeks, which is quite a spell. And then began to just read everything I could and try to immerse myself into this and really get a better understanding on marketing. And which helped. All that was beneficial. Then I went ahead and found a couple of coaches. In fact, I'm still working with a guy out of Australia, and there's another guy out of. I was getting coached by two guys, one out of Australia, the other guy out of Atlanta, Georgia, and I'd have these weekly coaching sessions, and they were helping me with marketing, and that transformed me also because there's it's very comprehensive actually. And what happens when you begin to understand and get a better grip and dig into marketing, it actually helps you in the creation of your art. You wouldn't think it would necessarily, but what it begins to do, it helps you start to get a grip on your audience that you're creating the art for. And so, for example, like we'll just use Nashville, that maybe that's the center for country western music, we'll say. Those guys know exactly what their audience is, and when they craft a song for their audience, and they're making a song that they enjoy, that they love making, but they also understand what their listeners and what their audience, what will appeal to them. And so it's a win-win. And so what happens once you begin to understand marketing and maybe building an avatar for the kind of person you're in fact trying to create your product for and so forth. And I'm not saying make something that you don't like. That's not my point. But the very best thing that can happen is that you find something that you enjoy making, and you find out it's also happens to be something that the audience is seeking. And so when you have that convergence like that, which is happening in my own life, frankly, right now. So when that happens, then you have the best of everything, because it's all synergistic, And so, but that a lot of that understanding with marketing and so forth continues to affect almost everything that I do right now, including concepts for paintings and so forth. And that creative element, it's a little mysterious even to me, that how you can kind of put all this together and go to sleep and wake up in the morning, you've got an idea that maybe you didn't have when you went to sleep, and maybe your subconscious worked on that, whatever, I don't know. But the bottom line is that something pops out. But this marketing element actually influences that as well. Whatever pops out of you, and then that again affects what you end up producing. And so, as far as marketing, so what happens is this is interesting, because marketing will always take time. Marketing will take time. Now, the time could be you beside some easels at a park with your work, and you're interacting with people that may walk by in the park, and you're talking to them about, them buying your art. That's taking time. Took time to set the easels up, to drive there, set your art up, and so forth. Time. So there's all that investment of time. So that same little micro example can be applied to almost everything. There's always time spent to end up being a success in art via some marketing vehicle, and that vehicle can be that thing in the park. It can also be a gallery. The gallery is simply a vehicle to market your art. A show can be a vehicle to market your art, and so on and so forth. And so as long as we understand the vehicle and the price we're going to pay, whether it's time or a percentage that you give away of money rather than your time to stand there, and so forth. It's all picking a vehicle and what's going to be the most successful fit for you. Maybe it's time on Facebook, maybe it's, however that's done, maybe it's social media, like I'm saying, it's just finding the vehicle that fits your own predilections and, what you feel is going to be your time spent best with your personality. And that's all marketing. And in my particular instance, I work hand in glove with the galleries that I'm in, and it's pretty remarkable because it takes a very special gallery to work with me. I'll just say that, and that's no criticism against anybody else. It's just what we have. Part of the reason why I would say I would assign my success to is that I have galleries that I can take and give concepts to, and they will spend the time to take these concepts, and maybe I'll give them maybe 8 concepts. I'll pick the number 8, and I'll say, well, here, these are concepts that I've come up with. What do you think about that? And what they'll do is they'll actually take their high net or ultra high net worth clientele that they have this relationship with that I don't have, that they've gone ahead and fostered and poured themselves into. But they'll take the initiative to go ahead and run those concepts past their clientele, and then the clientele will say, well, I think I don't like it, because I like them all. But that doesn't mean that the clients will, the people with the money. And so they'll go ahead and say, well, here, these, and maybe they'll pick 3 or 4 out of the 8 that are winners. And so then I'll go ahead and produce the 3 or 4 paintings, we'll say. And I know you'll be shocked to hear they're selling before they're off the easel in many cases, because they're virtually pre-sold. In fact, there's a national show here in the West Coast that wanted me in the show. And a guy got a hold of me on behalf of the guy running the show. And he said, well, here, we just want a painting. He says, I don't care what it is. We just want one of your paintings in the show. And I said, well, gosh, that's flattering. I said, I don't have anything. And he said, come on, every artist has got paintings hanging around their studio. I said, dude, I don't. I said, come on over. He was a local guy that called me. And he said, no, I said, his name was Mark. I said, Mark, come over to the studio. You find a painting, you can put it in the show. I said, I'm wiped out. The only painting I have is on the easel. Now and he said, really? I said, Mark, yes. And I said, if it wasn't that way, something's wrong, because I want, that's the level of success that I hope for, And so, and the good news is that I'm very blessed that that's been happening that way. But I'm trying to give you kind of a glimpse behind the scenes of the mechanics so there's this marketing stuff that's affecting the way that I create the concepts. And I get feedback from my galleries as well. They'll tell me, well, they don't like this, and this is why they didn't like it, but they'd like this, and this is why they like that, and so forth. So I'm getting all this live feedback. And I feel that all success is based on all progress. I'll just say it this way. All progress is based on a feedback loop, on an accurate feedback loop. So I couldn't even walk to my car if I closed my eyes, which are my feedback loop. If I try to walk to my car, maybe my hands become my feedback loop or a stick, and I can try and find my way to my car. But it's all based on feedback. And that's critical to an artist, because what happens if we don't have feedback, and that could be feedback from someone standing at their easels in the park, and people are, and they're talking to them, they're interacting, and they'll say, well, gee, I like this landscape here, but I don't like the dog you painted here. Well, why not? And then you can start to get this feedback. So that will all benefit you. And maybe sometimes we don't like hearing that, but I think it's all beneficial. I think even the bad stuff will help us. We can go, well, I don't think I'm going to do that again. And we can learn. But it's all based on this feedback. And my galleries are very, very efficient and very good at doing that with me. And not every gallery is prepared to do that. There was a gallery. I was up in Carmel, California, which is an amazing small town. Have you been there?
No, but I've heard good things.
It's amazing. And it's just this high net worth, we'll just say, a very charming town that has, last time I was up there, they had 82 galleries in this little small area. So it's just a little mind blowing. And so I poked my head in. I was actually asking marketing questions to one of the sales guys in this large gallery up there. And they said, well, here, and so he introduced me to the owner. I said, listen, I'm an artist. I don't want to take your time. If you're busy, please, I'll let you go. Oh, no. And so they wanted to talk to me. And so then, well, you're an artist. Let me see your art. And so the easiest thing these days is to whip your phone out, and you can show somebody a picture of your art. Well, the next thing I know, they've got the other owner in, and they've got me back in a room, and they want to carry my art, and which I mean, wow, that's very flattering. I appreciate that. And so we're talking about percentages and all that stuff, and okay, well, we'll see. Well, as it turned out, the reason why I bring that up as it turned out, they were not prepared. They said, listen, you make 10 paintings and then we'll pick 6 out of the 10 that we like and we'll take the 6. And I thought, well, if I do 10 paintings, I want all 10 to sell. I don't want to just have 4 back in my studio, right? And so, and I said, well, I need, okay, because every region and market is different. So Carmel will have a different market than Santa Fe, New Mexico. And Santa Fe, New Mexico will have a different market than downtown New York City, so forth. And so ideally you're creating, just like the Nashville with the country Western, you're creating product that's going to be a success in that market. And they weren't willing to spend the time to give me the feedback to be a success I felt, in their market. And I understand that. I'm not here to criticize that. It's just that I'm looking for a gallery, and actually, in fact, I'm fortunate enough to work with galleries that will invest that time, and it's been very successful for both of us, frankly.